We're going live. Oh my goodness, I am live. Holy cow. So we are live, ladies and gentlemen, with the much awaited top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football Players for 2019. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. We're not fueled by nerd teas because it is very late in the evening. Well, not very late. It's like 10 o'clock local for me. But we're not going to ingest any tea this late in the evening. I have got my lovely NFL football with all 32 NFL team logos on it, and I thought that was apropos considering we're going to be talking about some Dynasty Fantasy Football players today. You might notice the white light that's like rays from the Lord on this side of my face. I've got some CFL football kicking on the TV beside me here. So I'm just keeping myself apprised of the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Ottawa Redblacks, who are currently playing as we speak. Saskatchewan leading that game. But we're going to be talking about my top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football players. But to, have a little time pass and hopefully get some people in the chat, what we're going to be doing first I'm going to wind up tweeting at the stream, but I'm also going to be opening some packs of 2019-2020 Upper Deck MVP NHL hockey cards because I'm a hockey card fanatic. I absolutely love hockey cards, and I thought it would be a nice way to spend some time while we wait for some people to show up in the chat. So the very first thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to be grabbing my link here, and we're going to toss this out on Facebook, and we're going to toss it out on Twitter, because why not? We're going to throw this in here. The nice big capital, we live. And then we're going to copy that. And this is basically just the life of a content creator right here, is copying links, sharing that you're doing the thing, whether people are interested in you doing the thing or not. This is the life of a content creator right here, folks. So if you, it certainly does not take much. And if I can do it, anybody is certainly capable of doing it. So we're going to throw that link up there now, and going to throw the link up on Facebook as well once it decides that we want to. There we go. So we got that. And we will post to Facebook as well. Got a couple of notifications there. We will look at those later. So we'll close that. Nobody in the chat as of yet, but that is quite all right. So again, we're going to kick things off. We're going to open up some packs of NHL MVP hockey cards. It's the very first line that comes out every single year. Usually I stay away from the MVP line just because they tend to be of lower quality. But we got a retail box in at work, which we've never had hockey cards before. And I was like, whatever, I might as well buy a couple of packs, see what the MVP line is like. And I was actually pretty impressed with the quality of the cards so far. I'm impressed enough, in fact, that this is the number of cards that I've already purchased. I have a problem. So just to give you a general look here of what the MVP cards kind of look like. This is actually number 1 in the base set, which is kind of nice. And there's never been anything wrong with them, just in comparison to like Series 1 and Series 2 and some of the higher end lines. They're just not quite, they're just not quite up to par with some of those higher end, premium lines of cards. But just in a couple of retail packs, I've actually picked up a couple of decent little hits, ones that don't typically wind up being all that frequent in retail boxes. For anybody that collects cards, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So like I picked up an Upper Deck MVP laser shots, and I'm going to try to get it as close to the camera as possible so it's as less distorted as possible. I think this was, I can't remember what the frequency of this type of card coming up was, but not very much in like retail boxes. So I picked that up. That's Eric Carlson from San Jose. Also picked up a nice rookie card. This is going to be going to my friend Matty Parsons, who is a major Detroit Red Wings fan. But this is Philip Zadina. Philip Zadina played for my Mooseheads. It almost pains me to separate myself from this card, but I'm going to separate myself from the card anyway. Philip Zadina from the Detroit Red Wings. But then I picked up a rookie card from my team, the Montreal Canadiens, Ryan Poehling, who famously had a 4-goal game basically against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the final game of this past season. Certainly made me real excited for this kid to see maybe he cracks the lineup next year. Who knows? But there's Ryan Poehling from Montreal. They're also doing MVP does the Stanley Cup commemorative lines, and I can't remember which year this was that they're homaging this year, but we got a Stanley Cup edition card. It's Carl Grundstrom from the Los Angeles Kings. So we picked that one up as well. And then I was real excited about this one. Another relatively rare insert for retail packs. This is the Supernova insert set, and it's another Montreal Canadian. And I've been collecting Jesperi Kotkaniemi cards from 2018, 2019 lines when he was a rookie. So this isn't technically a rookie card because he would be a second-year player this year, but very excited to have picked up what is a relatively rare insert for retail cards. So that was very exciting. And we also picked up a, this is just a variant on the base set. It's what they call Silver Script. So I picked that up. That is Jeff Carter from the Los Angeles Kings. I also picked up the regular Jeff Carter, number 2 on the base set. So that's what I picked up so far, and that's just out of retail packs, which you don't typically have out of retail packs with that kind of frequency. So I've been very pleased with MVP so far this year. So what we're going to do, we're going to crack open the 10 packs that I bought this evening. It's much easier when I get a little bit of a discount from work. So we're going to crack open these packs right now while we wait for some people to show up in the chat. Obviously going to be making a big mess. That's half the fun. So we got a couple of base set cards, Lars Eller, Evgeny Kuznetsov, David Pasternak. That's actually MVP does this thing where they do like giant puzzle cards, which I absolutely hate, to be perfectly honest, because on the front of the card, it might be tough to see there, but it ruins the front of the card because they have to put their product information and stuff on the front of the card instead of on the back. So I absolutely dislike the puzzle card aspect. It was one of the reasons why I stopped collecting MVP, if I'm being perfectly honest. So that card, unfortunately, is, as Jonathan Torrens used to say from the show Street Sense, a hit TV show in Canada, that one is fit for the pit. So in that one, all we got were 4 base cards and that puzzle one, which is going to wind up in the garbage. So we're going to grab our second pack here. Once again, I picked up 10 packs of 2019-2020 Upper Deck MVP, and killing some time while some people show up in the chat, we're just going to open these packs here. We're on to pack number 2 while I make a gigantic mess. Let's see, Cam Atkinson, Miro Heiskanen. I picked up a rookie card. We can talk about that one. William Nylander, much maligned William Nylander, and Chris Kreider. Those, again, all from the base set. So we did pick up a rookie card here from the Dallas Stars. This is Joel L'Esperance, French name, but he was born in Brighton, Michigan. So, you know, you never can tell. So we picked up 1 rookie card so far, so a bit of a slow start, but that's all right. I do have 1 person in the chat. Whoever's in the chat, feel free to say something in the chat and say hello. We're just opening up some hockey cards here while we wait for some people, hopefully, to show up before we get into the top 50 Dynasty players. Let's see, a couple more base cards. We got Jack Eichel. We got Patrick Hornqvist, Ryan Murray. I know that one's a duplicate. Jamie Benn and Nino Niederreiter. So nothing much of significance there. Just some base cards. Going to go on here to pack number 4. Let me know, by the way, in the chat if I sound okay, if I look okay. I mean, I know I'm handsome, but you know, if I look all right. The video feed is doing well. We are going on to pack number 4, and almost wound up on the garbage, but I got fast hands. Andreas Janssen base card, Nico Hischier. Okay, we picked up an insert. Fantastic. So Andreas Janssen, Nico Hischier, John Carlson, and Clayton Keller in the base set, but we did pick up a Net Crashers insert. And this one is Jonathan Taves from the Chicago Blackhawks. We're going to try, and there we go. That's about as good as it's going to get there. So again, not really used to getting these insert cards from retail packs. So really, really excited about what I've picked up in total so far. But that's the first Net Crashers card that I have pulled from any of these packs. What up, Repulate Gaming? Thank you so much for showing up to the stream. Again, we're just opening up some 2019-2020 MVP before we get on to the top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football Players for 2019, just giving people some time to show up. So we're getting into pack number 5 here. Ripping them open. Let's see. Oh, we got another Net Crashers. Right on. That's back-to-back packs with Net Crashers, so feel good about that. In the base set, we got Braden Holtby, Artemi Panarin, Justin Schultz, and Matt Zuccarello. Just a bit of a reminder of what the base cards look like. Again, MVPs, nothing special. They're just they're just a solid card. They're the first series that comes out every year, but they're decent. They're decent cards. But again, we picked up a second Net Crasher. John Dell, are you not watching Ottawa versus Saski? Actually, I've got it on TV right over here, keeping my eye on the game. Game's going about as I expected it to go. Saski's up by 2 possessions, up 10 points. So no, I am definitely watching the game. I'm keeping one eye on it while we do this. Second Net Crashers card. This one, Taylor Hall from the New Jersey Devils, formerly, of course, of the Edmonton Oilers. So the fact that we picked up Net Crashers cards in back-to-back packs of retail packs, very, very excited about that. Let's see. We're on to pack number 6 of 10. Been live for just over 10 minutes. No worries. We got Andrei Vasilevsky in the base set. Bo Horvat. Oh, we did pick up another Stanley Cup edition, and actually, it's a silver script variant this time, which is nice. Ryan McDonough and Josh Morrissey from the base set. So you know how I showed you the Stanley Cup, what do they call them? Stanley Cup edition that kind of pays homage to prior Stanley Cups. This is another one. This is Joe Pavelski, but the difference to this one is you can see, you can see the signature there. It's a silver script variant on the Stanley Cup edition cards. So that's the second one that we've picked up that has a silver script variant. That is awesome. We'll pop this down here, and we're going to go to pack number 7. We see Saski still doing work here on the offensive side. Naaman Roosevelt just made an excellent catch. Again, if you don't watch the CFL, first of all, can't believe you showed up to my channel, but if you don't watch the CFL, you need to invest yourself in watching some CFL football, some of the best football you will ever see. Nazem Kadri, Thomas Tatar, another one of the puzzle back cards, which again is just going to wind up going in the garbage because it ruins the front of the card. Tyler Bertuzzi and Martin Jones in the base set. Nothing exciting out of that pack. So we move on quickly to pack number 8. Let's see. 2nd and 5 for the Riders. No biggie. Andrew, what up, Andrew? I can't wait for the Atlantic expansion team. Man, I'm going to be deep. I'm going to be you-know-what deep in that Atlantic Schooners football team. I look forward to doing videos from Halifax, like waiting to go to the game. Like I can't wait. I cannot wait for that franchise. I'm really crazy excited to be able to see a CFL football team here that I can go see, 9 games a season. I'm really, really excited about that. Let's see. This is pack number 8 in the base set. We got Mark Scheifele, Johnny Boychuk, TJ Brody, Alexander Barkov, Josh Bailey. Nothing overly interesting in that one, just base set cards. Go on to pack number 9 here. Only one pack to go after this one. Get these bad boys open. I think there's something therapeutic about opening a pack of sports cards. I really, really do. There's something about it that's just it's one of my happy places. Like just opening a fresh pack of sports cards, never knowing what's going to be on the inside. It's just nice. It's just a nice feeling. Let's see. In the base set. Oh, that is a touchdown. That is Naaman Roosevelt. Riders are running away with this bad boy. That is fantastic. That goes with exactly what I thought was going to happen in the game. So cha-ching on that one. Base set. Mark Giordano, Ricard Raquel, Logan Couture, Corey Crawford, Ryan DeZingle. Nothing interesting in that one. So we are moving on to our 10th and final pack of 2019-2020 MVP prior to talking about our top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football Players. Andrew Warren, I miss Johnny Boychuk as a Bruin. Johnny Boychuk was an underrated hockey player. I really like Johnny Boychuk. He was an underrated player for sure. One of those guys that you hated playing against, but you'd love to have him on your team. Final pack of the evening. Let's see what we got here. Do we have any interesting goodies? Base set Jeff Skinner. We got Matt Niskanen. Oh, we picked up another silver script. That's a good way to end. Andre Kopitar and Freddie Anderson in the base set. And this is our silver script. We picked up a silver script of Ricard Raquel. Of course, these aren't actual autographs, but we picked up the silver script of Ricard Raquel. Love me some hockey cards. That's not bad for 10 packs. I mean, we got the 2 Net Crashers inserts, so I feel pretty good about those. I'll probably wind up buying out the rest of what I have in my store. But those are the 10 packs of Upper Deck MVP 2019-2020. We did it, guys. We successfully opened packs of hockey cards. Man, those sports cards take me back as a kid. Apparently, I'm a giant kid because I refuse to go back. This is just me. This is just who I am, like as a 34-year-old man. This is who I am. All right, now, without further ado, let us get into our top 50, my top 50, Dynasty Fantasy Football Players for 2019. Obviously, I really enjoy Dynasty football. I've only been into it now. This is my 3rd year into Dynasty Fantasy Football, and I'm having a blast. I am really having a blast playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. And I've been running my own league now for about 3 years, pretty successful league. I got a really good group of managers I feel really good about. So we're going to get into things here. Again, it's a top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football Players for 2019. So you're going to get the most use, the most mileage out of this list if you are doing a redraft. Or, sorry, not if you're doing a redraft. If you're doing like your startup. If you're doing a Dynasty startup, that's where you're going to get the most mileage out of this specific list. So we're going to get started with 5 honorable mentions that I have before we crack into the top 50. These are just players that didn't quite make the cut for me personally to get them into my top 50. We're looking at Cortland Sutton, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. We're looking at O.J. Howard, tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Evan Ingram, tight end for the New York Giants. Josh Jacobs, rookie running back of the Oakland Raiders. And the last one on the list before we hit the top 50 is Corey Davis, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. So once again, those are 5 honorable mentions. Cortland Sutton is he's got all the tools. He could arguably be the best wide receiver on that football team. And I realize that Emmanuel Sanders obviously would have something to say about that in Denver. But in terms of pure talent, I think Cortland Sutton might be the most talented receiver on that team. He's certainly got the size. He's 6'4". He's a little over 210 pounds. So he's definitely got the size to be a red zone threat. And I mean, the guy's only 23 years old, not going to turn 24 until October. So he's got all the time in the world. My only problem with Cortland Sutton is anytime he's going to be thrown the football on the Denver Broncos, he's going to be thrown to by either Joe Flacco, Kevin Hogan, Drew Lock, or Brett Rypien. And that doesn't exactly instill and fill me with confidence in terms of what he can produce. That being said, he did put up 704 yards last season, 4 touchdowns as a rookie. So that's certainly not a bad year. And it was in 16 games. He only caught about 50% of the passes that were thrown at him. Maybe the quarterback play has a little something to do with that. But that's what kind of kept him off the list. Certainly not saying don't draft him. He just falls just outside the top 50. OJ Howard, another thing, a lot of people are talking about OJ Howard having a fantastic, like being a breakout candidate this season. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I kind of worry about the quarterbacking situation a little bit. Like behind Jameis Winston, there's not really anybody. There's Nick Fitzgerald, there's Blaine Gabbert, that experiment rolls on, Ryan Griffin, and apparently Vincent Testaverde is on this roster. So it's the quarterback play. If Jameis Winston happens to fall off a cliff, then who's throwing him the football? That said, aside from Mike Evans, he's probably the number 2 receiving option on that team. I mean, maybe, Chris Godwin probably have a little something to say about that as well. But he's certainly the number 1 tight end. Cameron Brate's going to be there. He's going to take some touches. But O.J. Howard has displayed that he's the real receiving threat. Had 5 touchdowns last year, 6'6", 250. One of those do-it-all new breed tight ends. You can't go wrong grabbing him. Just falls a little bit outside the list once again. Kind of the same deal with Evan Ingram. They're both of those guys are 24. Ingram turns 25 first. A little smaller at 6'3", but I mean, he's still 6'3", 6'3", 240. And again, the problem here is the quarterbacks and the fact that Evan Ingram, I guess Evan Ingram's probably the number 1 receiving threat on that team now that Odell Beckham's not there. I would rather be throwing the ball to Evan Ingram than a lot of the other receivers that are on that New York Giants team. But it could be a volume thing here where he could have an incredible season. Only had 577 yards and 3 scores last season, was limited to 11 games. So there is a little bit of an injury worry, a little bit of a concern there. But I mean, 2017, he had 115 targets. So he's going to be a huge part of the game plan. I just kind of feel like maybe he might get scripted out of a few games. That keeps him just outside of my top 50, but I do own him in my Dynasty League. Josh Jacobs, probably the player that is in the best position as a rookie to succeed this season. That's in my personal opinion. A lot of people would look at a guy like, well, what about like N'Keal Harry and what about Kyler Murray and all this? I think Josh Jacobs has the potential to be like a Christian McCaffrey, not as good a receiver, but like a Christian McCaffrey 3-down back type of player in Oakland. And it's not that he doesn't have other competition in the backfield. Isaiah Crowell is there, Doug Martin's there, Jalen Richard is there, DeAndre Washington is there. So he's got plenty of competition. Josh Jacobs is more talented than any of those players. I think Jacobs is going to have a big season. I think he should push 1,000 rushing yards, assuming he stays healthy. He's in a really good position. We just don't have an NFL track record on him yet. That's why I had to keep him outside of my top 50, but he is my top ranked rookie. And the last one in this block before we get into the top 50 is Corey Davis. See, again, I don't have the benefit of jump cuts, so I can't cut that dead air out. Corey Davis, look, 6'3", 209. He's a big body. He is a big target. He should be the primary target for Marcus Mariota or Ryan Tannehill, and that's a better quarterback combination than we've talked about for most of these options so far. He should be the number 1 receiving threat, but I mean, this is a run the ball first and second down football team with a running back like Derrick Henry, who I think is going to have a monster season this year. And you got Dion Lewis there, who's also going to look for targets in the pass game. So I think it just kind of limits the ceiling a little bit. But that said, I mean, Corey Davis could absolutely light the league on fire this year. I just didn't feel super confident enough to put him inside the top 50. And that's a big change from the first time I did these rankings. Like when I did these rankings, I did my first rankings back in May. I had him number 38 on my list. So he's tumbled 13 spots since then, and it's due to no fault of his own. It's just kind of the situation on the team. If Marcus Mariota finally lives up to all the expectations of him and they have a monster season, I could look like an idiot, but I'm no stranger to looking like an idiot on YouTube. So those are the honorable mentions. Those are the guys that just didn't quite make the overall top 50 list, but certainly guys that you may want to target in your actual draft. Let's see a couple comments from Andrew. I know me as a 30-year-old man, and if anyone can handle this situation, it's Bruce Arians. That's fair. That's a fair comment for sure. All right, moving on, we are going to look at players number 50 through number 46. So we'll just take these guys in five player blocks here. So number 50 to number 46 is Allen Robinson, Devonta Freeman, Baker Mayfield, Philip Lindsay, and we'll finish off this little mini block with Darius Geis. Allen Robinson, 25 years old. Actually, sorry, it is his birthday today, in fact. He just turned 26 today. So happy birthday to Allen Robinson. You made the top 50. I have not been the world's biggest Allen Robinson fan, and actually he's dropped 6 places since I did my first rankings in May. I don't necessarily know that he's going to be like the top number 1 receiving target on this team. I get the feeling that's going to wind up being Taylor Gabriel, whether it's worth saying like, oh, he's Allen Robinson's more talented than Taylor Gabriel and he's more talented than Anthony Miller. It's like, well, there's a number of mouths that need feeding here on the Chicago Bears, not to mention Trey Burton at the tight end position. So obviously Mitch Trubisky had himself a really good season last year. Is he going to be able to feed all of these mouths with consistency? Allen Robinson, he only had 754 yards last year and was limited to 13 games. He's got an injury history, and maybe that's what soured me on him to begin with. He's used to having high volume targets that I just don't necessarily know that he's going to get in this offense. So he only hits number 50 on my list. Devonta Freeman now does not have Tevin Coleman behind him in the Falcons backfield. So, I mean, he's the undisputed number 1 in the backfield on this team. Who would be the next up? I guess it would be Ito Smith, but Ito Smith isn't going to chew into his workload all that much, certainly not as much as Tevin Coleman did. Freeman, who's only limited to 2 games last year, so there is the injury concern here. He's 25 years old. No, he is not. Devonta Freeman is 27 years old. In fact, sorry, I was looking at the wrong player. So 27 years old, not getting old for a running back, but I mean, if you have a 27-year-old Devonta Freeman or a 21-year-old Josh Jacobs, obviously you're going to pay a little more attention to the 21-year-old. 27 years old, so I mean, couple years left before he hits that scary 30, and hopefully it'll be really interesting. I should say, really interesting to see how he rebounds from the injury that he had last season, not being able to play much more than a game and a little bit. So I'll be interested certainly to see how he rebounds from that injury. That's why he's not higher on the list. He did come up when I did these rankings in May. He was only my 5th honorable mention. So he has come up 7 spots since May, just because I feel like he's okay. And I feel like they're going to do something special there in Atlanta this season, but it's still not quite enough to get higher on the list than that. Baker Mayfield, my number 48. Obviously, he's got all the weapons in the world now on his team. You're talking about Nick Chubb, and once he comes back from suspension, Kareem Hunt. You got that, two-headed monster in the backfield. Receiving options, obviously, OBJ, Antonio Callaway is talented. You got Jarvis Landry there. DJ Montgomery can catch some passes. Jalen Strong. Tight end position, you got David Njoku, one of the best young tight ends in football. So Baker Mayfield's got all the weapons in the world. He's young. He's only 24 years old. Won't turn 25 until next April. So, I mean, he's young. He's got all the weapons in the world. I just need to see him do it. Sure, he had 27 touchdowns last year. That's fantastic. With all those weapons, Baker Mayfield should push 40 touchdowns. Should push 35 to 40 touchdowns is what I should say. Should push 4,500 yards. I don't see why he wouldn't, but I got to see him do it. So that's why, again, cautious optimism with a player like Baker Mayfield. Obviously, should be a stud, has all the weapons in the world to do so, but let's see it. Whew, so much talking. Number 47 is Philip Lindsay. Obviously, he's in a prime position on a run-first team like the Denver Broncos. He does have Royce Freeman there in the backfield. Obviously he's going to get his touches, and he's going to take some of that attention away from Philip Lindsay. But you're talking about a kid that had 1,000 yards rushing and 9 scores as a rookie last year. So obviously, very, very coveted asset. If you happen to have him on a dynasty roster or even in a redraft roster, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself and feeling pretty good about what he should be able to bring to the table. Once again, 1,037 rushing yards last year, 5.4 yards per carry, was a receiving threat, catches a couple of passes a game. Now, again, how much Joe Flacco is going to dish the football still remains to be seen. He does have some competition. That's why he's not higher on the list, because like you're talking about, Devontae Booker is on this roster. Royce Freeman's on this roster. Theo Riddick is on this roster. It'll be interesting to see how they deploy him as kind of a scat back, like a Duke Johnson style scat back. Be really interesting to see the deployment for the Denver Broncos. But I think if any team can sustain a repeat performance of what he did last year, it's probably the Broncos. So I got Philip Lindsay sitting at number 47. And number 46, the last player on this list, is Darius Geis. We didn't get to see what he was capable of doing as a rookie because he missed the entirety of last season. But now with Dwayne Haskins at quarterback, you do have Case Keenum behind him, but basically it's the Dwayne Haskins show here. I think Darius Geis is going to be leaned on very heavily in this backfield. He does have competition, obviously. It's not a slam dunk that he's going to be the RB1 on his own team. He's got Samaj Perine in there. Adrian Peterson is still on this roster. Chris Thompson is still on this roster. So obviously a bit of a theme in some of the early picks here, which is the guys that have competition for their touches, the guys that are not like undisputed number one guys on their own team. But I expect good things from Darius Geis. The only issue is it's the Washington Redskins, and their history with running backs, not so good. Tight ends either. Hello, Jordan Reed. But Darius Geis, he lands number 46 on my list. All right, let's see what we've got going on in the chat here. Andrew comes in with another comment. If Baker Mayfield has more than 40 touchdown passes, he can be a favorite for MVP. He could push something like that. I mean, with Jarvis Landry and OBJ at the wide receiver position, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt once he comes back at the running back position, and David Njoku at tight end, he's got all the weapons in the world, everything that he needs. Let's hope he can put everything together. Folks outside yelling. All right, let's do now players number 45 through 41. So number 45, starting with Chris Godwin. 44 is Derrick Henry. 43 is Deshaun Watson. 42 is Calvin Ridley. And 41 is Marlon Mack. So Chris Godwin, 23 years old, won't turn 24 until the offseason, until February. 6'1", 209 on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, Godwin would be the probably number 2 receiving option on this team now. They got a ton of wide receivers on this roster. Obviously, some good competition for like the number 2 and number 3 spot. I would say it probably goes Evan, Godwin, and Anthony Johnson. Obviously, there's question marks here about how much Jameis Winston is going to progress forward as a quarterback. Is he able to sustain a really solid number 2 wide receiver? I think he's shown flashes of that in the past, but part of that also could have been, Fitzmagic. But I think he should be able to do it. And I think there's decent enough running backs on this team that you have to respect the Tampa Bay Bucs run game, which can only help out a player like Chris Godwin. He had 95 targets last season, 842 yards, found the end zone 7 times. So a pretty decent breakout campaign in just his second season. Also, he's durable, has not missed a game in his 2 years in the NFL. Took a pretty decent step forward last season. Very much looking forward to seeing where he goes this season and beyond. It lands him number 45 on my list. We'll go to number 44. That's Derrick Henry. Talked about him a little bit earlier. 1,000-yard rusher from last season, 12 rushing touchdowns. Really, really showed up and had himself a hell of a season in 2018. Waiting for my information to come back. Where did you go? Yeah, here we go. 215 carries, so touched the ball quite a bit. Not much of a receiving threat, which will certainly hurt his value in PPR or half PPR leagues comparative to other running backs that catch the ball better. But Derrick Henry has all the physical talents to be a monster on the ground. He's 24 years old, won't turn 25 until January, which is tremendous. Had to once again double check that information. I think that information is incorrect. He is 25 now, won't turn 26. Won't turn 26 until January. So look, 25, he still should have 4 or 5 good years left before you start getting towards that, ugly 30 number. He's the undisputed number 1 back on this team now. I mean, you do have Dion Lewis there, which he'll pull in those receiving targets in the backfield, but I imagine Tennessee will probably wind up running a lot of 2-back sets where you could have Henry running the ball or you could have Dion Lewis catching it out of the backfield. I have no reservations about Derrick Henry whatsoever. That's why he winds up number 44 on this list. The football game is in commercial. I didn't get a chance to check what the score was. Last time I looked, 32-18 Saskatchewan. So they're obviously doing very well in that football game, which is nice. 2 full possessions. All right, number 43, Deshaun Watson. So, look, 4,000-yard passer last season, had over 25 touchdowns, had a QBR rating over 103, had himself an excellent season, did Deshaun Watson. I think he actually even didn't he miss a couple of games last season, or did he play the full season? 2 seconds here. No, he played a full 16 games. So, look, and it's funny, his QBR in his year and a half in the league, it's been 103 and 103.1. So far, he's been a model of consistency in a very young NFL career. He's only 23 years old. He turns 24 in September, just very early in the season, but obviously has a ton of time left as a quarterback, assuming the health stays up. He has all the athleticism to be this kind of quarterback, this 4,000-yard passer, 25 to 30 touchdowns. He can get it done on the ground as well. Had 551 yards rushing and 5 rush touchdowns. He's always a threat to take off and run. A dual threat quarterback and one of the best in the NFL. And from a dynasty perspective, a guy like Deshaun Watson is who you want in the quarterback position. He is actually my number 2 dynasty quarterback overall on this list. I'm betting you can probably guess who number 1 is, but he's my number 2 dynasty quarterback, just ahead of Baker Mayfield. He lands number 43 on this list. Number 42 is a guy I actually just traded for in my Dynasty League, and that is Calvin Ridley, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. 820 receiving yards last season and double-digit touchdowns for Calvin Ridley. That was just his rookie season, targeted 92 times. Here's a guy that Matt Ryan already trusts right out of the gate, and a real big, real bad season for Calvin Ridley, and I mean bad in the good way, the way the kids use it. A great season for him. He's young. He's only 24 years old. He turns 25 in December, so right around playoff time, he turns 25. This is a kid that should have 5, 6, 7 real good years left in him, and that's exactly the kind of dynasty asset that you're looking to add. I paid a little bit of a premium for him. I traded Leonard Fournette, but also got a little draft position in there too. But very happy to have picked up Calvin Ridley via trade with another manager in my league. He's number 42 on my list. And number 41, as we mentioned, Marlon Mack, running back for the Indianapolis Colts. What I love about Marlon Mack so much is obviously his physical talents, but it's also that offensive line. That O-line is really, really good. They blocked for him very well last year, 900 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns on the ground for Marlon Mack. Mack is only, got to find him, 23 years old. He doesn't turn 24 until March, so the off season. Young, he's established as basically his team's number one back. You do have Naheem Hines there, who will steal certainly some touches in the pass game. Marlon Mack, not a great receiving running back. He's got 38 catches in 26 games. So he's not exactly looked upon to be that receiving threat, but he is their primary runner. So 900 yards, I don't see any reason why Marlon Mack shouldn't be a perennial threat to run for 1,000 yards behind a really good offensive line. That's why I've got him at number 41. Okay, popping back in the stream here in the chat. A couple comments from Andrew and a couple of comments from Martin, my good friend Martin, West Coast Martin. Thank you so much for checking in, Martin. Hey, we got 4 viewers. Fantastic. Andrew, I think Derrick Henry should have made to Pro Bowl last year. I agree. Is Aaron Rodgers number 1 starting quarterback? He is not, in fact. In fact, Aaron Rodgers is not on this list. Martin chimes in, Deshaun is exciting. Not a Texan fan, but hope he has a great season. 100%. Like I have my team allegiance. It's in the NFC. It's the Green Bay Packers. So obviously I'm not a Texans fan either, but I also absolutely love watching the best football that I possibly can. And a guy like Deshaun makes me very excited to watch a Houston Texans football game. Martin chimes in again. I just dropped by for a few minutes. We'll be catching a little of the Seahawks-Chargers game soon on the telly. Fantastic. That is excellent. Really, you have the GOAT. Look, Rodgers, I love me some Aaron Rodgers. He's my quarterback. I mean, I love the guy. He ain't on this list. It's the age thing. It's the age thing. It's the only reason he's not on the list. In a redraft thing, totally. If you're just going for one championship, one season, totally. Aaron Rodgers is one of the top quarterbacks you would want to target. But from a dynasty perspective, if you're looking at it long term, not for me. And I love the guy, but not for me. All right, next block of players. This is number 40 to number 36. We're looking at actually 4 wide receivers out of this group of 5. Only 1 running back making the cut in this area. We got Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, AJ Green, funny enough, talking about a guy in age that's got a 3 in front of his age. Robert Woods, and the running back that makes it in this part of the list is the New England Patriots, Sony Michel. So start by looking at Cooper Kupp. Only 566 yards receiving last season, but did have 6 touchdowns. So look, if you're looking for those fantasy points, bingo bango, you get in there and you get those touchdowns. He was only limited to 8 games last year. So, I mean, if you parse that out to a 16-game season, I don't see any reason why Cooper Kupp wouldn't have had 10-plus touchdowns last year and possibly threatened for 1,000 yards. I mean, he was having a quite good season when he got injured. So he had 40 catches in 8 games. He is a target that Jared Goff trusts in that passing game for the Rams, which should be explosive and very, very good again this season. Cooper Kupp is only, what are we looking at here? He is just recently turned 26 back in June. Won't turn 27, obviously, until June of next year. Should have another good 4 or 5 years to be a quality, a guy that you would look at as, a slam dunk wide receiver 2 on your dynasty team. So Cooper Kupp lands at number 40. Number 39 here is Tyreek Hill, and that's going to seem a little low for people. Honestly, it was a character thing for me to steal a line from the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner movie Draft Day. It's a good movie. It was a character thing for me with Tyreek Hill. He was not on this list when I originally did my rankings, simply because I didn't know what was going to happen with that whole court case thing. Who knew? So I left him off the list entirely. He's crawled up inside my top 40 because, look, if he's on the football field, he is one of the most dynamic playmaking wide receivers in football today. He's only 25 years old. He won't turn 26 until March, which, once again, kind of like Cooper Kupp, should have another 5-6 years as a dominant force. I mean, you're talking about a 1,400-yard, 12-touchdown receiver just from last season who gets to develop alongside Patrick Mahomes. You can't ask for too much more. And I know Tony Cormier, who won our Dynasty League last year, certainly can't ask for much more because he's got them as a stack. Tyreek Hill, number 39 on my list. Number 38 to AJ Green. And again, people are probably going to be surprised that AJ Green is on this list, given that he's 30 years old. Just turned 31 at the end of July. So 31 years old. He's going to miss the first few games of this season with an injury. But look, if you are a team that is in win now mode, like if you want to win in the next, let's say your window is 2 years, going out and getting a guy like AJ Green, who once he gets healthy and gets back up to speed, is, even though there's some mouths to feed in that offense and, the quarterback is still Andy Dalton, he is undisputedly the number one target in that offense. You're looking at a guy who has had at least 100 targets every year of his career, except last year when he got hurt. The injuries are kind of climbing up here. So that's the one thing that keeps AJ Green from being like top 20, probably, maybe top 25 on this list, is that you got to start being a little concerned with the injuries now. He's missed significant time in 2 out of the last 3 seasons, and maybe even 3 out of the last 5 if you want to go back as far as 2014. So there's definitely some concerns there with AJ Green, but he still makes it on this list because I think he still has the potential to be like a dynamic team-altering piece if you can bring him in. Number 37, Robert Woods, also of the Los Angeles Rams. Again, this Rams pass offense should be very, very good this season. Lots of weapons. Jared Goff can sling that football. Robert Woods had over 1,200 yards receiving last season, found the end zone 6 times. The age is a bit of a thing. He is 27 years old now. He won't turn 28 until April, so another 3, 4, potentially 5 really good seasons for Robert Woods, assuming he can avoid injury, which he hasn't exactly been the greatest at doing in his career. I mean, you have 14 games, 16 games, 14, 13, 12. So he will probably miss a couple of games on your average season, but he's an excellent receiving target. It really broke out last year. Let's see what he can do this season for an encore. And number 36 at the end of this block is Sony Michel, running back for the New England Patriots. 931 yards rushing last season, only had 6 rushing touchdowns, and he does have some competition now in that New England backfield, but they're usually a by committee, next person up kind of team anyway. You've still got James White there. You've still got Rex Burkhead, but the deployment is such that Sony Michel should still be the team's top rusher, and B, will still put up the fantasy points for you, whether it's just in terms of the rush game and even a little bit in the receiving game. Not a ton, but he will give you a little bit in the receiving game as well. It was good enough for me to put Sony Michel, who is only 24, won't turn 25 until the off season. So obviously got a lot of good years left in him. Sony Michel, number 36 on my list. We're going to check. Whoa, easy now. We're going to check back in with chat now. Let's see what we've got. Martin with a couple of comments. Makes sense, Justin, about Aaron Rodgers not making your list. Again, it's just the age thing for me. It's just a bit too much. Tyreek, another player I like. Too bad about his issues. Hope he gets straightened out. Yeah, me too. I hope it was a one-off thing. I hope that it's one of those things that is behind him now, that he's beyond it, that he's made amends. It's the whole thing. I just hope the whole thing is over with. I hate hearing these stories about, obviously domestic violence under any circumstances, but certainly when it's a pro athlete that's involved, and it was just bad all around. So hopefully that's behind him and all of us. Andrew comes in. I love Sony Michel, his story from losing the national championship to winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, hell of hell of a time period there, right? You lose a national championship game, walk in and willy-nilly win a Super Bowl. That's not a bad position to be put in. I'm sure N'Keal Harry is hoping that something like that repeats. Come out of college football, first season in the NFL with the New England Patriots. I'm sure he's hoping that he walks in and willy-nilly wins himself a Super Bowl as well. Update on the Riders and Red Blacks football game here. Sasky is up 32-18, just under 7 minutes left in this football game, and Saskatchewan has the football as well. Heck of a play there. Nice. Did he make the catch? Yes, he did. Very nice catch, tiptoeing along the sidelines. That's my dude, Kyron Moore. Follow Kyron Moore on Twitter. He's a really good Twitter follow, and in my opinion, he is one of the best. Oh, it wasn't him. It was Manny Arsenal. And actually, that'll be overturned on review. So never mind. Boy, it's a good thing that I don't do play-by-play, because I would be very, very wrong on a play like that. Oh, you got to challenge that. Are you not? Oh, wow. Wow, they let it stand. Boy, I don't think that was a catch. But interesting. Oh, taking off and running. The Red Blacks are not a good football team. Martin in the comments, when you give your picks this season, Justin, hope you forecast the scores again. I will definitely be doing that on the NFL picks again this season. That was pretty cool you did last season. Best wishes with your bronze, gold, silver, and platinum weekly picks. Martin, I need to hire you as my promo guy. Like, I really need to hire you to just as like my hype man, basically. That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I can't wait to get the pick show for the NFL kickstarted again. That will be coming here very shortly. I mean, like, look, we're not very far away from actual NFL football, so getting very, very excited for that. All right, let's move on our dynasty list. We are going to be looking now at players number 35 to 31. And in this block, we are looking at wide receiver DJ Moore, wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, running back Leonard Fournette, who I mentioned before that I traded off of my team, running back Aaron Jones, and tight end Zach Ertz. I believe he's the first tight end to actually be talked about on the list. Of course, we had Evan Ingram and O.J. Howard in the honorable mentions. DJ Moore, it's an age thing for me, man. He's only 22. He won't turn 23 until April. He's already had a good season in the NFL, almost 800 yards receiving. He only had 2 touchdowns, but I mean, the touchdowns and the faith from his quarterback in the red zone, obviously that's going to come. We're talking about a player that had, again, almost 800 yards receiving last season as a rookie, has Cam Newton throwing him the ball. If Cam Newton is there and healthy for most of the season, DJ Moore should absolutely eclipse those numbers. It's kind of a Cortland Sutton situation there again, because whether or not he's the best wide receiver on this roster, I think he's the one that's got the most talent. He's certainly the one that's got the most upside, even though there are a number of mouths to feed there in the receiving game for the Carolina Panthers. But DJ Moore, he sits as my number 35 Dynasty Fantasy Football Player for 2019. We're going to move on to number 34, T.Y. Hilton, Indianapolis Colts. Look, when you've got the number 1 target of Andrew Luck and that big arm that Andrew Luck proved that he still has, it's tough not to go with a player like that. Yes, he is going to turn 30, and he is going to turn 30 on the 14th of November. So you do have to keep in mind that he's kind of getting towards, and you think about T.Y. Hilton, you don't think about him as an older wide receiver, but at 29, almost 30 years old, he is kind of an older wide receiver. But I mean, this is a guy, this is going to be his 8th season in the league, and in 8 seasons, he's only missed 4 games. Very, very durable player. As he gets older, obviously that will come down a little bit, but perennial 1,000-yard receiving threat, a guy that should sniff half a dozen touchdowns or more once again this season. He's an asset kind of like an A.J. Green, but a little bit younger, the younger version of A.J. Green. This would be the one that you would want to get above the other one. Between the two of them, you'd want T.Y. Hilton more than a guy like A.J. Green. But if you're in win now mode, he's a great asset to try to grab for a real run at the next 2 to 3 seasons to try to win a dynasty championship. T.Y. Hilton, number 34 on my list. Number 33 on the list is Leonard Fournette, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is only 24 years old. He won't turn 25 until January. So obviously he's got a lot of years left on him, or should have a lot of years left on him. My problem with Leonard Fournette is the injury concern. 3 games missed in 2017, half the season missed last season. So obviously there's a big concern there. And it looks like he's maybe turned the corner on that. It's mostly been like hamstring issues and stuff like that. Looks like he's hopefully turned the corner there. Nick Foles is the quarterback now, which should open up some more running lanes for Fournette if you actually now have to respect the Jacksonville Jaguars pass game. So that should open up more alleys for him. He's not much of a receiving threat, but he will put in a little bit every now and then. Was actually on pace to do better as a receiver last season than he did the season before. So he does kind of offer that as a PPR option. Leonard Fournette, it's mostly an age and situation thing. He's definitely the number one receiver, or definitely the number one running back, on that team, despite the fact that he does have Alfred Blue and Thomas Rawls also on the roster. Leonard Fournette, my number 33. My number 32, and a guy I'm incredibly excited to talk about. He's undersized at only 5'9" and 208 pounds, but it's Aaron Jones in Green Bay. This is my guy. This is my dark horse to really make the Packers offense something to be feared again. If you can have a running threat like they had in Eddie Lacy however many moons ago, if you can have that kind of production at the running back position, certainly they're two very different runners, but if you can have that kind of production at the running back position, the Green Bay Packers could do a lot of damage on the offensive side this season. He had 728 yards rushing last season, found the end zone 8 times. He's got 12 touchdowns in 24 games on his career. Now, there is a little bit of an injury concern there. He's missed time in both of his pro seasons, but took a big step forward last season, and I'm expecting another real big step forward. His ceiling, I would think, just for next season, is doubling his career rushing yards. He's got 1,176 yards rushing on his career. Could this guy be a 1,200-yard rusher? I personally think he could. I think it's a good situation. Their offensive line is really good. He's a better receiving target than he was in his rookie season. Aaron Jones could win some fantasy championships this year. I'm just going to throw that out there. Whether it's dynasty or redraft, he could win some championships for you this year. He is available, in fact. He is the highest ranked available player in our upcoming dynasty draft, which takes place tomorrow. Aaron Jones, number 32 on my list. And the final player to talk about in this block is Philadelphia Eagles tight end Zach Ertz. And all he did last season from the tight end position is have over 1,150 yards receiving and found the end zone 8 times. Big body, 6'5", 250. He is 29 years old. Sorry, he's 28 years old. Won't turn 29 until the 10th of November. So he will turn 29 in season. Probably another 3-4 years, you would think, at being elite at the position. He's definitely one of, if not the best option at tight end. Certainly in a redraft league, Zach Ertz is the one that you're going to want to target. Hopefully, with any luck, should have a full healthy season with Carson Wentz, which would be the first time in 2 years that he would have had that. So fingers crossed you'll have that from Zach Ertz, but you know exactly what you're going to get from Zach Ertz. He'd be a little higher on the list if he were a little younger, but as of right now, sits at number 31 on my list. All right, we're going to pop back into the chat here and see what is going on. Andrew with a couple of comments. T.Y. Hilton is very underrated. He had 5 catches for 85 yards in the division round loss to Kansas City. Absolute. Look, I mean, dude's a great player. He's a great player. And as Andrew Luck's health goes, it doesn't necessarily impact T.Y. Hilton. I think he's almost quarterback proof. I feel like you could put him on any roster, and he's going to threaten for 1,000 yards. Another one from Andrew. I'm sorry that was the wild card win against the Texans. Against the Chiefs, had 4 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. So, look, I would think he's a guy, again, you put on any team, any quarterback, he's going to have success. Folks, we are now approaching the 1 hour mark on the stream. Looks like the Saskatchewan Roughriders just pulled up another takeaway on the defensive side, and holy cow, they're starting to run away with this thing. So she's getting a little ugly in I think the game's in Saskatchewan, so getting a little ugly in Saskatchewan. That's a heck of a claim. Andrew Warren, T.Y. Hilton's the Marvin Harrison of his generation. He might be. You might not be wrong. All right, let's move on here. We're inside our top 30 on my 2019 Top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football Players. This block is going to be number 30 through number 26. Got a couple of Detroit Lions in this part. Hopefully Half Moon will be watching the VOD at a later date. We got wide receiver Kenny Golladay. We've got tight end George Kittle. We've got wide receivers Adam Thielen and Brandon Cooks. And we end this block off with running back Kerryon Johnson, who is owned by this guy in my Dynasty League. So Kenny Golladay, again, it's an age thing for me. Galladay's 25. He will turn 26 in season, but that's plenty of time, especially when he really broke out for 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards receiving, found the end zone 5 times, got 8 touchdowns in a very young career so far. He's only been in the league for 2 seasons. Missed a little bit of time in his first year, but played 15 games last season, was targeted 120 times. I would say he's probably the number 1 receiving threat on that team this season. Marvin Jones will have something to say about that, as will Danny Amendola. But I think if there's one guy to own from the Lions receiving core, it's Kenny Golladay. No reason why he wouldn't be able to repeat 1,000 yards receiving, repeat 5 or more touchdown receptions. So Kenny Golladay winds up number 30 on my list. Number 29, looking at George Kittle. Monster season last season. 1,300 yards receiving for the 49ers. Only 5 receiving touchdowns, but he was definitely a primary target for the combination of, who did they use at quarterback last year? Nick Mullins, C.J. Beathard, who are both still on the roster. Hopefully, Jimmy Garoppolo has recovered from his injury, and hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo will be will be good to go and will be an asset to his team rather than being an injury detriment. I don't necessarily know that George Kittle's ever going to repeat that yardage total that he had last season, but he's hyper durable. He's only missed 1 game in 2 seasons, and to have nearly 1,400 receiving yards as a tight end is something special. He's coveted. He's only, what did we say he was? He's only, I lost him. Where is he? He's only 25 years old, just about to turn 26. He'll turn 26 in October, but that should give him plenty of time as a dynasty asset to be one of the top tight end options for a few years to come. George Kittle, number 29 on the list. Gonna have to take more water. Number 28 on the list is Adam Thielen. He actually just turned 29 a couple days ago, August the 22nd. So happy belated birthday to Adam Thielen, and congratulations, you're number 28 on my list. Minnesota Vikings. He is held back a little bit, I think, by the fact that it is Kirk Cousins delivering the football, but he still had 1,300 yards receiving last year, 9 receiving touchdowns, was a primary target game in and game out. Don't expect that to change. Another guy that if you are pushing for a championship in the next 3 to 4 years, he's a guy that if you want to sell the farm for him with your young assets or draft picks, whatever, I certainly can't tell you that it's a bad move, because Adam Thielen should be a top receiving option in fantasy for the next few years to come. So Adam Thielen, number 28 on my list. And if you pronounce it Thielen, I think you're wrong, but that's okay. Number 27, Brandon Cooks, once again from the Los Angeles Rams. That's our third LA Rams wide receiver. So he is 26 years old, I believe, making sure that my math is right. No, actually, doesn't turn 26 until the 25th of September. So he's still 25, which means, look, should have another 4 to 5 seasons of being a real high level elite asset in Dynasty. 1,200 yards receiving, 5 receiving scores last season. He's only 5'10, 183, so might be a little undersized to be a red zone threat, but he's definitely got the speed and he's used to getting high volumes of targets. 4 consecutive seasons now with not only at least 1,000 yards receiving, but with also at least 114 targets. So he's definitely used to being a big part of whatever offense he's on, whether it be New Orleans, New England, or now with the LA Rams. Also durable, has not missed a game since 2014. He's a guy you want to look at for sure, somewhere in that, late second, early third round. Brandon Cooks, number 27 on my list. And Kerryon Johnson, number 26, was a solid asset for me last season. 641 yards rushing, only 3 rushing touchdowns, but was a receiving threat. Found the end zone in the receiving game. 32 catches last season in just 10 games. So I think, get him over a 16-game season. I get the feeling he's going to take a big step forward this year. He is the undisputed number 1 in the backfield right now. He does have CJ Anderson there, but that's more of an injury contingency, I would say. He is only 5'11", so you might like to see him be a little bit larger than that, but former second-round pick, did the job last year. I think he's going to take a big step forward. Kerryon Johnson, my number 26. And just like that, folks, we're halfway home on the actual list. Obviously, we're going to fly through the second half of it because, look, we're looking at a lot of guys you can probably start pinpointing exactly where they're going to wind up going. Oh, Riders have topped 40 points. Awesome. Way to go, Sasky. I got them. I got such a great futures play on the Saskatchewan Roughriders to be the Grey Cup champions this year. So, man, can't wait. All right, couple comments here. I'd say tonight's Texans-Cowboys game is ugly for the Texans. Down 34-0 in the fourth quarter. At least Houston's not in front of their home crowd. Ooh, oh boy, not good. Andrew Warren, Kenny Golladay, very good player. He can be a Pro Bowler this year if he improves the stats. 70 catches for 1,063 and 5 touchdowns. Kenny Golladay should be a top receiving option in fantasy this year. I don't see why he wouldn't be. So look, we've been going for an hour now. I am going to take a little bit of a break here just for a minute or two. I'm going to go grab some more water. My throat's starting to be tested by this thing. We're going to come back with our top 25. So again, we're halfway home in this thing. We will get our top 25 after I go get a refill on my water. Be right back. Enjoy the sounds of CFL football.
Two touchdowns on the first 2 games. And then when Ottawa got it to just over possession, he had the big drive all the way down the field to cap things off, make it a 2-possession game. And that's been it. Ian LaFrance will take the handoff from Isaac Carter. You see Hamilton next, and tomorrow, touchdown Atlantic. Vernon Adams trying to keep that Montreal roll going. The Argonauts need to win to stay in touch in that Eastern race. Sunday noon, Eastern, 9 Pacific. And it sounds like it'll be a sellout Mountain, which is outstanding. And again, like last night I mentioned, but good luck to the new worship group that's trying to put a football team in Halifax.
All right, we are back after our short commercial break where you got to listen to a little bit of CFL football and then talked about Touchdown Atlantic, which goes down tomorrow on Sunday. It's the Argonauts and the Montreal Alouettes playing in Moncton. As you may have heard, it looks like that's going to be a sellout, so fingers crossed that they sell that building out and we prove that Maritimes ready for a CFL franchise. All right, let us move on now to our top 25. We're going to go, let's go number 25. You know what? Let's start doing them in blocks of 10 here. So we're going to go from number 25 all the way up to number 16. Try to expedite this here for you a little bit. Number 25, Stephon Diggs. Number 24, my top-ranked quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Number 23, Antonio Brown. Number 22, Travis Kelce. Number 21 is Le'Veon Bell. Number 20, James Conner. Number 19 is Keenan Allen. Number 18 is Amari Cooper. Number 17 is Julio Jones. And number 16 is David Johnson. So we do have a couple of 30-year-old wide receivers in there, which we will talk about when we get there. We're going to start with Stephon Diggs, 25 years old, won't turn 26 until the very end of November. So another one of those guys that's in a situation where he should have 4 to 5 more seasons of being an elite receiving option in this league. Over 1,000 yards receiving last season, 9 receiving touchdowns. So they do a very good job there in Minnesota of splitting out Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Obviously, I give Diggs a bit of a nod here over Thielen, just based on the age thing. He's 3 years younger, should be a more effective player in this season, or in this game, and in this league for longer than Thielen will. Again, excellent season last year. Certainly, by far, his most targets in the NFL last season. Certainly trending in the right direction, the first time topping 1,000 yards receiving. The guy's got 24 touchdowns in 55 games on his career. He puts up big points and points in bunches. Stephon Diggs, number 25. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, what else can you say about the dude? I mean, 23 years old, won't be 24 until the middle of September. So first couple weeks in the season, he'll turn 24. But all he did as a rookie is just like set records, man. 5,000 yards passing, almost 5,100, 50 touchdowns, 113.8 on his QBR. If he comes anywhere close to repeating that, he'll be like a top 3 quarterback option year in and year out. And from a dynasty perspective, the fact that the kid's only going to be 24 this season, he could have another 10 years of playing somewhere in this area, maybe even more with the way sports science is going to develop in the next 10 years. But I mean, if he comes close to that, he's going to be in this position year in and year out. So should be no surprise to anybody. Patrick Mahomes, my top quarterback dynasty asset, number 24 overall. Number 23, Antonio Brown. Like, look, this whole saga with the helmet is embarrassing, and I don't think it should come as any surprise to anyone that I consider it embarrassing. But holy cow! I mean, like, the dude's he's incredibly talented. Incredibly talented. 15 receiving touchdowns last season. I personally don't think he comes anywhere close to that this year, but I mean, if he does, obviously, then he deserves to be there and probably deserves to be a little bit higher. But the age is a bit of an issue for me, too. He just turned 31 on the 10th of July. Certainly doesn't act like it, but just turned 31. So how many more seasons is he going to do it? Maybe 2. So again, win now mode, sure. Target Antonio Brown as much as you want. Be interesting to see how he deals with the change of team, going from Pittsburgh to the Oakland Raiders and going from Ben Roethlisberger going to Derek Carr. So be interesting to see how all those things play out. And of course, Helmet Gate, be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Antonio Brown, my number 23. 22, Travis Kelce. I mean, 6'5", 260. Certainly got a big body. Certainly one of the primary targets of the aforementioned Patrick Mahomes. 1,300 yards receiving and double-digit touchdowns for Travis Kelce last season. His second straight season of at least 8 receiving touchdowns and third straight season of 1,000 yards receiving. He's durable. He's only missed 1 game in his NFL career, so that's certainly what you want from the tight end position. A little bit of a do-it-all. Certainly has the trust of his young quarterback and should be in this position for years to come. Travis Kelce, my number 22, and I flip back and forth on how I actually pronounce that name, whether I pronounce it Kels or Kelsey, and whether it's supposed to be pronounced Kels or Kelsey. I I just keep changing my mind. Le'Veon Bell, my number 21. Obviously, we have nothing on him from last season because he chose not to play. Certainly hurting my chances in the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Fantasy Football League, where I drafted him in the first round. So on that one. But look, Lev Bell is a bell cow. I mean, that's kind of where to me, that's where that phrase comes from. Like somebody says bell cow in reference to anybody, I think, oh yeah, Le'Veon Bell. And it looks like Sam Darnold's really taken a step forward at the quarterback position, which would only help Le'Veon Bell out. The more running lanes he has to work with, the more dangerous he's going to be. I'm even a little hesitant, though, putting him this high because who knows how it's going to translate for him having taken a whole year off of football. Let's see how he comes back when you're actually having live rounds here and the games actually matter. Let's see how he comes back from that. But we've got Lev Bell sitting at number 21, and we've got James Conner, his replacement in Pittsburgh, just one spot ahead of him at number 20. And that's in part due to the age difference. There's 4 years in age difference between the two of them. He is 20, just turned 24 in May. So look, James Conner should have 5, 6, 7 more years of being, an RB1, hopefully. Had a dozen rushing touchdowns last season, certainly had himself a hell of a year, carrying the ball 215 times and being a big threat in the receiving game as well. 71 targets last year, and he caught 55 of them. So if he can continue that, being that dual threat in the backfield for Pittsburgh, there's no reason why he shouldn't be in this spot every single year. James Conner, my number 20. Now, I am going to take a pause here because my information for basically every other player that I previously had brought up looks like it has gone the way of the dodo bird. So that's all right. We're just going to close that window entirely. We are going to keep the window open with you beautiful peoples here while we continue to talk about our players. And actually, we've got a couple more comments in the chat here, so we'll look at those right now. AB is very talented, but maybe if he puts the diva hood behind him, he'll be fine. At this point, I mean, the dude's 31. If he hasn't figured out to put the diva stuff behind him yet, he probably isn't going to. But I tend to agree. I think he's one of the most talented wide receivers in football. If he could shut his mouth, he'd be great. He also said, I think Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce want to get my Patriots in week 15. That will be a hell of a game late in the season. I mean, that is a game that could dictate home field advantage in the AFC. So that's a heck of a job by the schedule makers there to make that game. Rock Out tosses a comment down. Thank you for joining us. Would you trade Le'Veon Bell and Kittle for Mixon and Adams wide receiver and have Michael Thomas and Diggs at wide receiver already? Cook as my RB2? That's an interesting question. So I have a tool that I use for this stuff. It's the Dynasty Trade Calculator. It is an invaluable tool to me personally. Now, look, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of different tools you can use, and nothing should be your sole only tool that you use. But we're going to toss this into the Dynasty Trade Calculator and see what the DTC has to say about it. Would you trade Le'Veon Bell and Kittle? So we're going to be giving away Lev Bell as well as George Kittle. And I'm making a couple of assumptions here. I'm assuming this is a 12-team league. I'm assuming it's full PPR with relatively standard scoring. Rock Out if you want to clarify some of that for me. It would certainly help me make a judgment on the call. But trading Le'Veon Bell and George Kittle for Joe Mixon, and I'm going to assume Adams is Davante Adams in Green Bay. So we're looking at Joe Mixon and Davante Adams. Let's see. Joe Mixon and Davante Adams. Well, I mean, if you're the team that right now owns Le'Veon Bell and George Kittle, I would certainly make that trade because I think you're improving. You're probably improving on both parts here. If you're the team that currently has Joe Mixon and Devontae Adams, I would be asking for quite a bit more. Like I would be almost be asking you to trade me George Kittle twice. There would certainly have to be some draft pick considerations that would be thrown in there. I mean, look, Devontae Adams is one of the top full PPR wide receivers in the NFL. Joe Mixon, there's concerns there that he's going to get like scripted out of games. I don't think that's the case. I think Joe Mixon is going to be close to a bell cow running back in Cincinnati. And, especially with AJ Green hurt for the first few games, I think you're going to see a healthy dose of Joe Mixon. So honestly, I mean, if I'm the manager on the other side that has Mixon and Devontae Adams, I'm personally not making that trade without more coming back from your side. But I love talking about dynasty trades. Like I absolutely adore talking about them. So full PPR league. I would need more coming back my way before I would look at shedding either one of those players as assets. Again, they're two players that we have not even talked about yet. But Rock, thanks for the question. If you have any other ones or stuff to add into the trade, hey, let's talk about it. All right, so we got as far as the top 20 here. So because my information is kind of gone, we're going to just continue on our path here. We mentioned number 19 is Keenan Allen, number 18 is Amari Cooper, number 17, Julio Jones, and number 16, David Johnson. So of those players, obviously you're going to take note that Julio Jones is 30 years old, potentially turning 31 this year. Again, in wide receiver terms, probably only a couple years left being at the top of his game. But right now, he is at the top of his game, deserves to be drafted in the second round in a dynasty startup, would deserve to be drafted probably in the first round, arguably, in a redraft league. I mean, look, Julio's been doing it really well for a long time, all the way back when Roddy White was the primary wide receiver. I mean, Julio was even doing it back then. Julio is a hell of a player. Keenan Allen looks like he's put the injury concerns behind him, which is fantastic. I think Keenan Allen should be absolutely dynamite. I would not feel bad about, deploying him as, a low-end wide receiver 1 or a very high-end wide receiver 2. From a dynasty perspective, yeah, he's getting a little bit older, 27, 28 years old, but should have another 3 to 4 years where, barring any more major injuries, he should be at the top of his game. Amari Cooper, he's got the age edge there in that competition between, Cooper v. Allen. He's 3 years younger. I think he's in a really good spot in Dallas. I think he has a really good rapport with Dak Prescott. He fits into that offense very, very well. Amari Cooper is a guy that if you can bring him in, I think it would really benefit you to rolling out Amari Cooper as like a wide receiver 1. And David Johnson, the injury concern is going to be there with David Johnson. When David Johnson is in there and when David Johnson's on, I think he's one of the best in the game. But there is the injury concern there. You do have to worry about that. You do have to worry about the team that he's playing for and whether he winds up getting game scripted a little bit out of some games, which could hurt his value. But as it stands right now in the preseason, I think David Johnson's going to be a stud this year. So draft him with confidence as, a low-end RB1 or high-end RB2. Should be going in the second round of your dynasty startup. Rock, I'll make the trade. I think I'll make the trade. Look, it can never hurt to propose the trade. I don't think it'll go through without you sending more. But look, there's can certainly never hurt to make the trade option. Jareed Kiera comes in in the chat talking about Andrew Luck retiring. I certainly did not see anything about that. I'll humor this with a quick Twitter search, but I saw absolutely nothing about this from before. Colts, wow. Holy cow. No, I didn't see this at all. Because I mean, this happened. This is literally breaking while I've been streaming. So no, I have not seen this at all. The Colts have known that Andrew Luck seriously mulling retiring for at least 2 weeks. This is courtesy of Ian Rappaport, Rap Sheet on Twitter. He's married, plans to travel the world, and once the love for the game waned, sounded like he wanted to step away. Holy cow! This is incredible. Oh my God. Andrew Luck gets booed walking off the field as fans learn about his reported retirement. Holy cow. This is incredible. Like, I'm sorry, this is like kind of derailed the whole stream, but whoa. Dude. That is incredible. Wow. Okay. Well, my immediate reaction is I should probably drop T.Y. Hilton on the rankings a little bit, although I did just talk up how much I was like, hey, T.Y. Hilton is quarterback proof. Does that give value to Jacoby Brissett? Yeah, I would say so. I would say that definitely gives value to Jacoby Brissett. Brissett's a talented quarterback. And I think, look, I mean, if he's going to be given the reins, then, oh my God. I might stay away from Brissett in redraft this year. We'll put it that way. Because obviously this is going to come as a shock to him that, like, hey, guess what? You're the starting quarterback now. Holy cow, this is unreal. So yeah, it does give value to Brissett from a dynasty perspective for sure. Redraft, I might sheer clear just for this season, or like let him sit there, like, you know, let him sit in the draft. If somebody wants to spend a draft pick on him in a redraft, I would say let them for this season. But in a dynasty pool, yeah, I'd probably want to grab him. Wow, that is crazy. And he is, let's see, Andrew Luck. I'm going to assume Andrew Luck is probably owned in our Dynasty League. Yeah, he sure is. Holy cow. That is going to make somebody very upset that dude is going to retire. Now, again, all of this is reported. So, I mean, maybe this doesn't happen, but holy cow. That's crazy. Okay, let's try to get back on track here. Damn. A little yikes. Sorry, I gotta stop just looking through Twitter. But that's crazy. That's insane. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, dude, for bringing that to my attention. Jared, thank you so much for mentioning that, because wow. All right. Well, we may have something to try to have to deal with in the Dynasty League. Okay. So let's move on. Where did we even leave off? Holy cow, this is a complete debacle. Funny enough, I had Andrew Luck ranked as number 56 on my dynasty rankings, but we can safely move him onto Doug Baldwin Island now. So let's see, where did we leave off? I think we left off with David Johnson. So we're looking strictly at our top 15 now. These are our top 15 Dynasty Fantasy Football assets for 2019. We're going to go number 15 to number 11, so and just right outside the top 10. Number 15, Nick Chubb. Number 14, Dalvin Cook. Number 13, Todd Gurley. Number 12, Melvin Gordon. And number 11 is Mike Evans. So now is where we really start hitting those top-tier, high-end running backs. Nick Chubb, there are actually, but there's a bit of issue with actually multiple people that's in this block. Nick Chubb he's got Kareem Hunt on his team now. Sure, he's going to be 8 weeks without him while Hunt serves as suspension for being a terrible human being. But once Kareem Hunt is in that backfield, I kind of feel like Kareem Hunt's the more talented back. I could be totally wrong about that, but I kind of feel like he's the more talented back. And if that plays itself out, what does that mean for like a 23, 24-year-old Nick Chubb? Does that mean, like, can this offense sustain two running backs in that way? Duke Johnson didn't seem to think so, and he left town. So that'll be real interesting to see if that if that kind of plays itself out. Dalvin Cook had a little bit of an injury concern in his rookie season. I think he played close to a full season or a full season last year. I think he had decent numbers. He's only 23, 24 years old. So these young, already established RB1s on their own team, these are the guys that you really want to grab them. Tail end of the first round or very early part of the second. You can't go wrong with Dalvin Cook. You could potentially go wrong with Todd Gurley if the knee doesn't hold up, but he's another guy that, were it not for the knee concerns, would be top 5 in this list easily. But when you already have a knee concern, and not just a knee concern, the fact that it sounds like it's like arthritic, and for a young guy, 24, 25, a running back, a pro athlete, to have an arthritic knee issue, that's something that as a dynasty owner kind of makes me want to do this, like especially at the price tag. So Todd Gurley, look, I'm not telling you not to go for it. I'm just saying, buyer understand what you're getting into. Not necessarily buyer beware, just buyer understand. Number 12, Melvin Gordon. I'd be more comfortable with the position that I have him with on this list were it not for this contract dispute and the holdout. And like now after Le'Veon Bell took the concept of a running back sitting out for an entire season and brought it to the forefront in all of our minds, certainly from a fantasy perspective and from a real world perspective. So the possibility, I guess, is always there. I would imagine they get something done in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, something prior to the beginning of the season for for Melvin Gordon not to miss any time. Mike Evans, I have him on my dynasty team. He's not my number 1 wide receiver because I actually have a wide receiver that we're still yet to talk about. But Mike Evans has been a perennial threat to potentially be like the top wide receiver asset in dynasty, like ever since I drafted him, really, and hasn't really let me down. I am concerned a little bit about the quarterback play, but I would think should be fine for years to come. And he's only 25, 26 years old, so should have another 5, 6, maybe even 7 years as a top asset as a wide receiver in dynasty. Man, that whole Andrew Luck thing is incredible. And let's see. I'm checking in here to see if anybody. Oh yeah. so the folks are talking in the dynasty chat. Boy, I think we're gonna have to try to figure something out for a couple of managers here coming up. But it is now time. This is the moment you've been waiting for. You've been sitting with me. Andrew's been sitting with me for pretty close to an hour and a half. Let's go into the top 10 Dynasty Fantasy Football assets, my top 10 Dynasty Fantasy Football assets for 2019. My top 10 looks like this. Running back Joe Mixon, Cincinnati. Wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, Pittsburgh. Number 8, Michael Thomas, wide receiver, New Orleans. Number 7, Devontae Adams, wide receiver, Green Bay. Number 6, Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver, Cleveland. Number 5, DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver, Houston. He's my number 1 ranked wide receiver. And my top 4 are all running backs. We've got Alvin Kamara in New Orleans, who I have on my team. We've got Ezekiel Elliott, number 3 from Dallas. Number 2, Run CMC, Christian McCaffrey. And my number 1 Dynasty Fantasy Football asset is Big Saquon, quads himself, Saquon Barkley, running back for the New York Giants. Joe Mixon, we kind of talked about a little bit earlier this evening, who maybe he might get game scripted out of a few games here and there. Certainly if the receiving game is off or the defense is off as well. But I mean, he's got bell cow written all over him. He should be a guy that touches the ball 250 to 300 times a year. That's the level of talent that I think he is. Juju Smith-Schuster might be the ultimate wild card, certainly inside the top 10, because he's moving from the slot where he did incredibly well last year, and he's going to be moving to the outside. And how he adapts to being an outside receiver. Sorry, there was an interception in the CFL game. Now this is a BC and Hamilton. The Sasky game is over. Saskatchewan in a romp. So now it's Hamilton and BC. Sorry, I got a little distracted. How he adapts to moving from the slot to the outside is really going to dictate how he does this season. But the kid's only 23. He could have 10 years as a top wide receiver option in this league. So he's got to be that close to the top. He's my number 9. A little behind Michael Thomas. Even though Juju's got 4 years on him in age, Michael Thomas is established in this league. Michael Thomas is arguably the best receiver in football. And I think I can make that argument, certainly based on his catch rate and the quarterback that he plays with. Now, he's only going to have a couple more years of Drew Brees, maybe even only 1 more year. Who knows? Because as we've seen tonight, quarterbacks can retire at the drop of a hat. So, wow. Sorry, just again, I'm still blown away by the Andrew Luck thing. But Michael Thomas, again, I think he's arguably the best wide receiver in football. He lands number 8 on my list. I do have Devontae Adams in front of him, and maybe that's just me being a homer. I own him on my dynasty team. He plays for the Packers. He's got Aaron Rodgers. I love him. He's elite. He makes every catch look simple. He's got blistering speed down the sidelines. Devontae Adams is a complete top-to-bottom wide receiver 1. He's number 7 on my list. Number 6 is Odell Beckham. I'm not a giant Odell Beckham fan. I think he makes spectacular catches, but I think his fundamentals are not exactly as good as some of the other receivers that I have here. But I mean, look, he's playing on a stacked offensive team now in Cleveland, and should have every opportunity in the world to be a 12 to 1,300 yard receiver, maybe push double-digit touchdowns year in and year out. Should have 5-ish more years of being an elite number 1 wide receiver. He's number 6. Ditto for DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins does have injury concerns. He's missed time in multiple seasons, I believe, and as a quarterback that's got a little bit of injury concern as well. But man, especially if you can stack those two, like if you can do what Tony's done with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and stack Deshaun Watson with DeAndre Hopkins, I think you'd have a hell of a successful roster. DeAndre's my number 5. And again, my number 1 ranked wide receiver in Dynasty for this year. Of the 4 running backs that I mentioned at the top, I would say if you're in a redraft league, if you're doing redraft, I would take Alvin Kamara. Only because, Christian McCaffrey, I think is great. I think he's fantastic. It'll be interesting to me to see what he does this particular season. Zeke Elliott's got the contract situation. Saquon playing on a terrible football team. Out of those 4 players, Kamara's got the best offensive line. He's the most efficient, and I think he has the most established role in his own offense. So if you're in a redraft league, Alvin Kamara might be my number one pick in a redraft league. But as it stands, I've got him number 4 on my dynasty picks. Zeke Elliott, both he and Kamara are 23, 24 years old. So you should have tons of time with both of these players. The two ahead of them, Barkley and McCaffrey, they are a year younger at 22. So look, 1 year can make all the difference when you're trying to pick between, top 5 assets. You want to go for the youngest ones you possibly can. So you got Alvin Kamara number 4, Zeke Elliott number 3, Christian McCaffrey number 2, and Quads himself, Quadzilla, Saquon Barkley as my number 1 Dynasty Fantasy Football asset for 2019. Anybody else got any league shattering news they want to drop on me before we end the stream? Holy crap. First of all, thank you so much for being here. For anybody that has been here, thank you so much for stopping in, taking the time to chat with me a little bit, especially Jared, who just drops that knowledge bomb on me that Andrew Luck is retiring. A couple comments here from Andrew Warren to close us out. Hatbox confirmed it on the Progs page. Todd Gurley's okay. I think he has arthritis in his left knee. Yeah, exactly. So that's a problem. Juju might be more pressured now that AB is gone. 100% agree. He definitely is. He's the number 1 guy in Pittsburgh, definitely. And Devontae Adams is a machine. Yes, he is. I enjoy watching him every opportunity that I get a chance to. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you've stopped by in the chat, thank you so much for stopping by and dropping your information like Jared did about Andrew Luck retiring. I guess I have to wish Andrew Luck, hey, happy retirement. Enjoy your time away from the game. I understand it's been a lot of pain for you lately. And look, I hope things turn out well for you. Obviously, you'll never watch this, but whatever. I hope things turn out well for you. I really do. That's it for me. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Throat is hurting, not fueled by nerd teas. We are fueled strictly by water. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this hour and 40-minute plus stream with my top 50 Dynasty Fantasy Football Players for 2019. We'll see you again next time.